Before we get started, before we get started with introductions, I'd like to review a couple housekeeping items. For transparency purposes, this meeting is in webinar format, and all comments made either verbally or typed into the chat are considered public record. To ensure all input and voices are heard, any comments that you may place in the chat will be read aloud. Please feel free to indicate in the chat whether you agree with a comment that was stated so we have an idea of how many people supported the thought or recommendation. So for us to get to know who's involved with this RAC and to provide an opportunity for you to test out your Zoom controls, if you could please raise your hand using the raise hand function. And when your name is called, unmute your microphone and provide the following: your name, your location, and your connection to family childcare. When finished introducing yourself, you can go ahead and lower your hand and then call on someone else who has their hand raised. So I'm gonna begin with introductions and pass it off to the other DELC staff first. So my name is Carol Peterson and I'm a policy analyst with CCLD, and I'll be facilitating the majority of these RAC meetings. And I will hand it off to Abby.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abby Strom, and I am joining this meeting from Portland, Oregon. I am also a policy analyst with Carol from the Child Care Licensing Division policy team. And I'm very happy to be spending the next several Wednesdays with you. I will pass it off to Allison because I'm not sure if Carrie's on yet.
Hey everyone, I'm Allison Delory. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Child Care Labor Liaison here at DELC. And tonight I'm just here to listen and help with note-taking. So nice to see you all, and thanks for being here after a long day with children, I'm sure for many of you. And Carrie, I'll pass it to you if your audio is working.
I don't think Carrie is able to get back on yet. We do have another, I'll just say, oh, she's here, but her audio is not working. We do have another DELC CCLD staff person here with us as well. And her name is Carrie, and hopefully her audio and video will be working shortly. I will pick a participant. I'm going to say Sarah, the first one I see.
Hi, my name is Sarah Garzinski. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Marion County. I work with their CCRNR, and I am a quality improvement manager. And my connection to in-home family childcare providers, I used to run some focused childcare networks with in-home educators, and now I supervise those on my team who run the networks with in-home educators. So it's kind of the circle of life. Oh. I'll call on Angela.
Hi there, I'm Angela Bukowski. I am in Southern Oregon, Jackson County, down in Medford. And I am a foster bio and adoptive parent of kiddos in care. Let's see, I can see Kristen next.
Hi, my name is Kristen Gray. I am in North Portland. I'm a registered provider. I've been providing family child care for 28 years.
Great.
I hope everybody could hear me. I don't know
Yes.
if I'm working. Okay,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and call on Annalise, please.
Hi, everybody. Annalise Shahan, on a certified family child care in the Portland metro area, Clackamas County. Been a child care provider for a long time, chief union steward, and I'm here representing our family child care provider union members, bargaining union members. Thanks. And I'll pass it off to Danny Stam Thomas. Thanks.
Thank you. Hello, Danny Stam Thomas. My pronouns are she and her. I'm currently in Salem, Oregon, but I'm the Early Learning Hub Director for Clackamas County, and that's what I'm here as a partner agency this evening, but also lots of experience with family child care when I was with Child Care Resource and Referral for many years prior to this role. Thank you. I will call on Fernanda.
Everybody, my name is Fernanda Lucas de la Torre. I'm located in Coos Bay, in South Coast. I'm the director and owner of Little Creek Bilingual School. It's a program from 2 to 8-year-olds here in our rural Coos Bay. And I'm gonna pass it to Monica.
Monica, it looks like you're muted. But you're driving, so that's okay. You don't have to introduce yourself if you don't want to. I don't want you to be distracted. So I'll go ahead and Amanda.
Oh, sorry. It's
Oh,
okay. I was
oh, you're
just
fine.
trying to
Okay.
move and figure it out. But I'll be parking very shortly.
Okay.
Sorry. My name is Monica Guerrero Costa, and I'm headed to take my kids to his orchestra first day, so that's where I'm headed right now. But I am a certified childcare provider in Tangent, and yeah, that's. I will pass it on to Abby. No, not Abby. Amanda.
Thank you, Monica.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm located in Columbia County. I am a parent of a child who had been in child care up until recently.
Great. And
Was
Mindy.
there someone left? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Mindy.
Hi, I'm Mindy Mudgett, and I'm a certified daycare provider. I live in Pendleton, which is in Umatilla County, and I've been providing daycare for about 30 years now.
Welcome.
Thanks.
And Jemmy.
Hi, my name is Jamie, and certified registered family childcare, and I've been doing it for about 4 years, and I'm eager to learn more and about everything as possible.
Thank you. And Amanda, is that a old hand, or did you want to include or add something?
Sorry, I'm taking it off now.
Okay. Great. Okay, well, thank you so much. It's wonderful meeting you all. And again, thank you for going ahead and participating in this RAC. I know you all have been working with children for the entire day, so we're committed to start on time and end on time in order to support participation as much as possible. And Annalise, you have a question, or?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, Vanessa Brown is planning on being here. She's stuck at a doctor's appointment. They were running late, and she's going to
Okay.
get on us absolutely as soon as she can.
Oh, thank you, Annalise. I appreciate that. So first, I'd like to go through the meeting agenda for tonight. For this first meeting, I'm going to spend a portion of the time talking at you as I provide an overview of all the work accomplished leading up to this RAC. So we're going to kick off the meeting by reviewing some group norms, and then we'll move into rulemaking, guiding principles, and engagement activities. I'll cover some resources that we've used for rulemaking, explain what a RAC is and the scope of this family childcare RAC. And then we will go over some feedback opportunities. And then we'll dive into reviewing the actual rule text. We'll take a break about 60 minutes into the meeting for about 5 minutes. And then we will pick back up and review more rule texts, and then do a closing and then next steps. If at any time you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or pop them in the chat, and Abby will go ahead and read those to me. So at the beginning of each meeting, we will start by reviewing some standard group norms that will help guide us throughout our time together and ground us in the work we will be focusing on. We want to allow opportunities for all voices to be heard. We want to remain focused on the scope of the RAC, be open for respectful discussion, encourage and honor individual perspectives and truths, use the raise hand function or chat for comments, practice active listening, listen to understand and give time to reflect before responding, and then seek commonality. We may disagree, which is okay, but we will be guided by our shared commitment to this work. So after reviewing this list, if there's any other norms that you would like to add, please place your suggestion into the chat or feel free to email me after the meeting and I will make sure that they get added. So now I want to transition us into some rulemaking guiding principles that we incorporated into this rule set. So this slide represents CCLD's general rulemaking guiding principles that have been used when creating or revising rule sets. The principles are: we examine and attempt to remove barriers to align with feedback from the field. We've incorporated a plain language approach to the rules, which provides better clarity to the rule and will help increase understanding of the requirement by providers, licensing staff, and parents. In addition, this plain language approach does allow for more accurate translations into other languages, since CCLD does translate family childcare rules into Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, and Chinese. We've aligned the rules with best practice when possible. We have clarified and placed existing CCLD practice into the rules themselves. An example of this is the ability to store licensing records electronically. In the existing rules, this option is not addressed, but it's been an allowable practice within CCLD. So by placing the existing practice into rule, this allows for providers, parents, and licensing staff to be on the same page with the requirement. The rules have been organized in a logical manner that combines regulations into like categories, so you no longer will have to hunt down in various sections for the requirement. Both the rule language and the layout of the rule sections are as consistent as possible across all license types. You will find some slight differences between CF and RF, but by and large, the sections are consistent, and this helps support being able to easily locate the requirement. And it also helps with better understanding of the rules themselves when providers change license types from registered home to certified home, or certified home to center, or back and forth. So due to these extensive changes, you're going to notice a difference in the division numbering in both sets of the rules we are reviewing. CCLD will be repealing the current rule divisions, which are Division 205 for registered family and 350 for certified family, and they will be replaced with new rule division numbers, which you may have noticed in the draft rules that I sent out. So now I'd like to just cover briefly the family child care rule revision timeline and engagement milestones. So engagement and initial revision on the family child care rule sets actually began prior to this timeline, with some limited engagement conducted prior to the pandemic. Since the pandemic, we've continued with working on revising both family child care rule sets. We started this round of engagement, the engagement process, in January of this year, when we began holding listening sessions for both registered and certified home providers. For the providers that are present tonight on this call, you may recall receiving information on how to participate in these sessions, and some of you may have actually attended one. So the intent of these sessions was to better understand from a provider's perspective what rules are challenging to follow, what rules providers would like to see added or removed, and what other barriers have been experienced operating licensed family childcare businesses. In addition to the listening sessions, we offered an opportunity to engage and provide feedback through an online feedback form that was available on the DELC's website. This form was active from February through April and asked the same questions that were asked during the listening sessions. Responses gathered from both the listening sessions and the online feedback form was categorized, and that information was used during the next stage of engagement, which was the Family Child Care Work Group. That work group consisted of 3 meetings, that took place in June and July. And those participants reviewed draft rule language based on the topics identified from both the listening sessions as well as the online feedback form. The feedback obtained from the work group members was reviewed and incorporated into the rule sets when possible, and it assisted with the development of the rule sets we'll be reviewing during this RAC. The star indicates where CCLD is at with the rulemaking process to date. During this RAC, the information gathered will be reviewed and adjustments to the rule language may be made prior to the draft rules being presented to the Early Learning Council in December for proposed adoption. The proposed effective date for these rules is July 1st, 2025, and the 6 months between the adoption and effective dates allows time for staff training, the development of resources and technical assistance documents to aid in the revisions and support providers with these changes, and it will allow time for any necessary IT updates that may be needed for our licensing database to support the implementation of the revised rules. And Jemmy, do you have a question or is your hand accidentally raised? Just want to make sure I'm not missing a question. Oh, okay. Thank you. So now I would like to just briefly go over some resources that are often used in CCLD rulemaking. Please know this is not an exhaustive list, but it does help show the agencies and resources that we frequently refer to when rule revision or rule development takes place. We rely a lot on Caring for Our Children, or CFOC. That's a collection of national standards that represent best practice for health and safety requirements in early care settings. We ensure any draft requirements are in compliance with the Child Care Development Fund, or CCDF. That is a federal grant administered to states that funds subsidy programs such as ERDC and the bulk of CCLD's licensing system. CCDF requirements ensure health and safety measures are in place, and it helps to enhance the quality of childcare for all children. Additionally, we frequently consult with partner agencies such as Environmental Health, Fire Marshal, Oregon Health Authority, and Child Care Resource and Referral, as well as our Early Learning Hub representatives who are present on this RAC tonight. Some other examples of national resources that are referenced when reviewing or revising rules is the Child Care Technical Assistance Network. This is a national database of child care licensing regulations. This is a tool for searching national and state information about child care licensing, regulations, agency policies, and requirements. Another is the National Center on Early Childhood Quality Assurance. And this has information on state and national resources as well, but it also focuses on quality rating and improvement systems and research that promotes continuous quality improvement. The American Academy of Pediatrics is often referenced, as well as the Consumer Protection Safety Commission, or CPSC. And CPSC is an independent federal regulatory agency that establishes safety standards or guidelines for consumer products, including cribs, equipment, playground equipment, protective playground surfacing, among others. And we often consult other states' licensing rules as well. The reasons may vary why certain states are referenced versus others. For example, several states have very detailed interpretive guides that show the rationale and research for specific requirements. Other states may have a similar licensing structure as Oregon, or they are recognized by the national resources previously mentioned as having a strong licensing system overall. And one last key resource used throughout this rulemaking process was the collective knowledge that was provided by experts in the field. We relied and continue to rely heavily on the input and feedback received through the multi-step engagement process that has taken place with childcare providers through the listening sessions, online feedback form, the work group, and now this RAC. So now I just want to briefly go over what a rulemaking advisory committee, or RAC, is. So A RAC is a group of internal and external partners who come together to help implement rules in response to new or updated legislation. RAC members provide input and suggestions for rulemaking while considering equity and fiscal impacts. CCLD often seeks diverse groups of individuals who interact with the agency and the programs run by the agency, such as childcare providers, CCR&R and Early Learning Hub representatives, tribal nation representatives, union or advocate representatives, and parents and families of children, which I think we've got a pretty good representation on this committee now. So now I'd like to just briefly go over this current family childcare RAC scope. So the family childcare RAC will help identify any fiscal impacts or resources that are needed to implement the change, any equity impacts, which are unintended consequences that may impact specific groups or communities, and unclear rule language. As we review the rule language, some guiding questions that relate to the RAC scope are the rules identified as having a fiscal impact accurate? And are there additional resources that may be needed for implementation? Are there any unintended or potentially negative impacts to specific groups or communities? Is the rule language clear enough to understand the intent of the rule? And are there any other unintended consequences of the rule change or addition? This RAC structure will be a little different in that we will be reviewing both the registered family and the certified family rule sets at the same time. Given the amount of information that we will be covering in the 4 meetings, we will be reviewing the rules in the order they appear in the draft rule notice that I included in my email. The rule notices are used so you can view and provide feedback on the exact rule language. Many sections are going to look exactly the same between the registered home and the certified home, but it's very important that the entire rule set is reviewed through your lens, since each of you have a unique perspective on how these rules may impact you. As mentioned in the email I sent, the rule notices have been highlighted with many of the key changes. However, not every new rule is highlighted, and some of the highlighted rules may fall into multiple areas of consideration. So that's another reason we will be reviewing the entire rule sets. Any key decisions or changes based on your feedback will be reviewed at the beginning of each meeting. Please know that we are continuing to review the draft rules internally as well, so many of the grammatical or spelling errors you may have observed have already been addressed. In addition, if rules have been removed from the draft set, you will see a strike through on the rule text indicating that removal, and I will be highlighting any of those changes during the meeting. We're going to be monitoring the time for each rule section, so the opportunity for verbal comments may be a little limited, but there will be other options for you to provide feedback, which I'll be reviewing on the next slide. So this slide shows the additional opportunities to provide feedback to these draft rules. The Smart Sheet or feedback form, along with the meeting agenda and rule sections that will be reviewed, will be sent out prior to each meeting to allow you time to prepare. My goal is to get them out no later than the Friday, so that you guys would have a weekend if in fact you can carve out a little time during that small window of time. Please feel free to use the feedback form to capture any of your thoughts or suggestions pertaining to the draft rules. And this feedback form will be available throughout the RAC for you to use. As noted on this slide, as well as in the feedback form itself, this form is intended for RAC participants only. So we request that you do not share this with others outside of the RAC. In addition to the feedback form, other opportunities to provide your thoughts or opinions on the rules are you can provide written comments, and those may be submitted to Chris O'Grady at this email address or via postal mail which is 700 Summer Street Northeast, number 350 in Salem, 97301. That public comment period is open. It opens September 1st, and it will be closing October 31st. A virtual public hearing will be held to take oral comments from people as well. The public hearing for certified family home providers, or rules rather, is on October 28th from 5 to 6. And for registered family home rules, it's on October 29th from 5 to 6. And if you're interested in providing oral comments, you can refer to the ELC, Early Learning Council's calendar on the DELC website with information on how to participate. If there are no questions on the information I just presented, I'd like to transition us into reviewing the actual rule language that is listed in the rule notice that I emailed you all. We're going to review each section of the rules, focusing on equity and fiscal impacts, as well as unclear language. We're going to begin with the registered family rules. Then we will review the same section of the certified family rules. As previously mentioned, many of the rule sections we will review are exactly the same between registered family and certified family, but it is important that each rule set is reviewed to ensure there are no questions or concern about the proposed requirements. So are there any questions about the meeting format, the meeting itself, or any information that I just presented? Anything in the, oh, Abby.
I don't see anything currently from participants, but I just want to say that I just looked at the smart sheet and I saw that 2 people had submitted comments. So thank you for using that as a way to provide additional feedback. And we will be reviewing that with our internal rule team weekly. And that feedback form will be open until the last RAC meeting in mid-October. So you have 4 weeks to use that.
Okay. Now we'll see if this worked. I'm gonna close up my Zoom and go here. Yeah, awesome. Technology is not always, it doesn't always work like planned, but I'm glad that it did. So we're gonna start right now with just going through the definitions. As I mentioned, a lot of these items are highlighted. Over here is the key. So anything in yellow indicates a new rule or section. Green is a potential fiscal impact. Blue, a potential equity impact. And pink is a call out of revised wording or terminology. So as we're moving through this, I will highlight a couple items. You will see these little stickies off to the side, and I'll go over those when they appear. Basically, what I'm going to do is scroll down, highlight certain sections, and if you have any questions or concerns, please raise your hand, and I'll stop scrolling and we can address it. Once we're done looking through this definition section, I'll go ahead and start with the certified homes then. So with that, let's get started.
Danny has a hand raised, Carol.
Yeah, Danny.
Hi there, thanks. I put this in the form, but I just wondered what the group also thought about this. Reading the definition of behavior and guidance, I don't really love the use of the word self-control there. When we're talking about children, we always use the concept of self-regulation.
Okay.
And so self-control doesn't feel right when you're talking about child development.
Okay. So are you suggesting changing that to self-regulation?
I am.
Okay, great. That's wonderful feedback. Amanda.
Hi. I also was gonna write in the form on top of the behavior and guidance part, maybe how to self-regulate or self-control, because it's talking about, the behavior and guidance, and their kids, they're still learning how to do those things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And so that's a really good reminder for me. This definition is a definition for a larger section that we're going to take in and go ahead and review in a later meeting. And so it may address exactly what you were referencing, where it dives into more about what behavior and guidance can look like and how it should look like and what is appropriate and what's not. Is that kind of what you were suggesting, Amanda?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Annalise.
Carol, isn't it also generally accepted practice that these definitions are not enforceable in and of themselves? These aren't cited. It's more of guidance in how to read the rest and interpret the rest of the rules, right?
Correct. So the definitions truly do help provide a framework for the actual rules section. So that's a great call out, Annalise. Thanks. Yes, Sarah.
Not highlighted, but above children with special needs, it refers to the term parent. And I always, when I see parent, I think parent or guardian, because there's a variety of families. So I don't know if that's something that would be an equity issue.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that. Abby.
And Sarah, thank you for that comment. We frequently get this comment about the use of the word parent in regulation, and we have actually spoken with our DOJ, Department of Justice, I guess attorney, about using another term, and parent is really legally what we are going to use, but we are looking at, in general, if we can use a different term that is more inclusive of multiple family structures. So more research and to come on that, but for right now, it's probably going to continue to be parent.
Thanks, Abby, for adding that. So I did want to call attention to this terminology with child with specific needs. So child with specific needs did replace the definition of child with special needs. So child with specific needs is more is a broader term, where you see here that permanent or temporary. So we have a larger broader frame of reference for when children may need adaptations or different plans or something like that. And again, this definition will feed in to a section of the rules later on that we will cover. We did put in a definition of developmentally appropriate. And so, Sarah?
Hi again.
Yeah.
Under children related with the fourth degree, are foster children included in that, or children in the process of being adopted? That's a question that I get a lot.
That's a good question, Sarah, and
Yep.
I don't have an answer for you. We'll look into it and get back to you, okay? That's a good question. Annalise, I saw your hand go up and then go down.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and I was gonna put it in the chat. because of the ADA and ADA compliance, I don't know that we can get rid of child with special needs.
And I'll let Abby speak to that a little bit more, because I think.
And we do use the term child with special needs in specific rules. And there are, and you'll see that later on, like in the definition of a childcare child, we use the term child with special needs, as well as, I can't remember what we'll see as we continue through, but it hasn't been completely removed. It just is, they're two separate things within the rule.
Right, exactly. And so what I'm saying to follow up on that is that's exactly what I'm saying. Because the definitions are there for clarity. And because the rules, and I've read both rule sets, our union had a work group and we dug through all these rules very carefully so that we made sure that anything that I spoke to was our union position. Special needs and specific needs, this specific needs sort of blurs the line. And so I think if with absent special needs, this is going to create chaos, confusion, and could be problematic. I mean, it's Delk's rule set, they can do what they want, but I think without, if the waters get muddied with specific needs and special needs isn't, the definition of special needs isn't in there, I don't think you're going to accomplish your goals of clarity, transparency, and guidance.
Okay. Thank you. We do have a definition now of disinfect, and this was based on guidance that we received from OHA. Yes, Sarah.
I'm trying to compare this with my notes. It's like a lot. So field trip, I had a question about the term neighborhood walks. Is that's a question that I get a lot. Does a neighborhood walk count as a field trip? Because a lot of educators will take their children to the park, which is, half a mile away. So if a neighbor, or that's different than just like a trip around the block. So I don't know if there is a difference or if that needs to be defined, but that was something that I have experienced with questioning before.
So we did define this so it does not include neighborhood walks or routine school or home pickup and drop-offs provided by the registered family childcare. So a field trip is outside of the neighborhood, potentially, transportation. It could feed into transportation rules. So there are some other components that figure into the field trip. Does that help provide a little clarity? Awesome. One definition I do want to highlight, and again, this is going to be in a larger section that we're going to go ahead and be reviewing either next meeting or the third meeting, is definition number 21, which is inaccessible to children. So based on information that we heard from listening sessions from the community work group, providers really wanted more flexibility with how they could store potentially toxic or hazardous materials that prior to under the old rule set needed to be stored under child safety lock. So they requested what are some different options. So we aligned this inaccessible to children based on our center definition that was developed. And so it means out of the reach of children by meeting one of the following requirements. It can be secured with a child safety device, that would be child safety lock. It can be a product not manufactured as a child safety product, but it needs to have a multi-step opening process or require 2 hands to open. So from a licensing specialist standpoint, I routinely see carabiners, I've seen bungee cords, I've seen different items like that that requires two hands, and truly that prevented access, and so that was allowed. And then locked, such as in a locked room, cupboard, or drawer. Since there were the community work group really stressed that there needed to be options for items that such as medications, firearms, the higher risk items. They were very specific that those needed to be locked. It can be behind a properly secured child safety gate, or in a cupboard or on a shelf that is not within reach of any surface from where a child can sit or climb. So we increase those options. We will review this again through the lens when we get to the hazard section, but it's important that we have this definition and kind of review that. Yes, Abby.
And I apologize to Danny. She had a comment in the chat that was in response to the question about related to the 4th degree, which is most other state items follow the blood marriage adoption rule, but I don't know that they should. So it sounds like we need to just ask that question around the 4th degree.
Yes.
Piece.
Thank you, Danny. We did put in a definition for licensing period. For registered home, it's 24 months. And you'll notice in certified home, it's 12 months. So it clearly shows the difference. And then there's an example of what that looks like, so people better understand what the licensing period can look like. Yes, Sarah?
For night care, the time period is between 9 and 5. And when we're entering information into Find Childcare Oregon, that time period is 10 to 6 for overnight care. So I just don't know if that discrepancy could be an issue.
That's a good call out. We will go ahead and look into that and get back to you next meeting. Ashley.
Thank you. This is kind of related to the licensing period section, slightly unrelated, but the same. So you kind of talked about technology and electronic documents and whatnot. With my facilities, we've kind of come up against a problem with sending in applications like within that licensing period or renewal period, and they are not received, or something gets lost. I mean, is that anywhere like coming up, I guess, as far as any sort of electronic renewal or application process?
Ashley, how I would love for us to actually be, I would love to say, yeah, our system is going to go ahead and be able to take electronic records and things like that. It's still, we are working on a provider management system that at some point will allow for us to receive fees, applications, everything like that electronically. But I have to be honest with you, it's quite a ways out. But we are working on it. And so I hope that within well, I don't even want to guess on a timeline, but we're working on it.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate that. It's just been a pretty big challenge because we'll send everything in like certified mail, and half the time my licensor's like, I didn't get you're this or you're that. And sometimes even the check will be cashed, but they've lost the application. So I was just curious. Thank you for your answer.
Always make photocopies of everything.
I do. And then I email them to our licensor as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. We do have a definition now of physical restraint. Again, this definition is going to feed into a larger section that we'll be reviewing later on. But this goes over what it is and what it isn't. So this definition will, when we review this section, we can revisit this definition so that you can better understand how the two play together. I do want to point out play yard. Play yard is another term for pack and play. And so it's not like the like plastic gating protective area. That's not for the sake of these rules, that is not what we are defining. Yes, Annalise.
Given the commercial use of the word play yard, I guess I would perhaps define, instead of defining play yard, I would maybe define infant play or infant. I would maybe define like infant sleep surface or something like that, and that, have subsets. Play yard, it can be interchanged with pack and play or something, because if I look up the word play yard, it's going to give me those giant things that you can pop up and put children in to play outside or inside.
Okay, great.
And I understand licensing is not the consumer commercial world, but sometimes we've got to drive the lingo that's being used by the industry and by commercialism. To me, that just is going to make that things confusing and chaotic.
Okay. We did add dislocated bone to serious injury or incident. The reportable when it needs to be reported. And we added in a definition of supervision. This the supervision definition is consistent across all the other rule types, but it was not in registered home. So we did add that in. Hey, if there are no other questions, okay, Sarah.
For visitor, what extended stays for families? How does that factor in? That might, for me, is unclear.
So, are you talking about how that folds in with like CBR, the Central Background Registry? Okay, so we'll be going into that section when it's listed in the CBR section, and we can go over that. And then if you have questions, we can address those at that time. Okay, so keep your question handy there. So now I'm switching to certified home rules. And as you can see, the definitions are very similar to what we just covered in registered homes. And here's the licensing period, which defines for certified homes is 12 months versus the 24 months for registered. Yes, Annalise.
Just a quick question, or maybe not a question, but a comment, and something that I hadn't really thought about just until just now when you were scrolling through this piece. Dislocated bone. I don't know that that's the right term. I wonder, and it probably is not inclusive of what you're trying to do. I wonder if it wouldn't be dislocated bone or joint.
Okay.
Just might want to throw for, for full guidance, the words dislocated bone or joint.
Okay. We'll definitely look into that. Thank you. So as you can see, the registered home and certified home definitions were pretty consistent across both license types. So were there any questions that came in through the chat, Abby?
Danny is just providing us with some Googling, which is
Yes.
Google says the medical term is joint dislocation. I wondered that as well and agree with Annalise. So yes.
Awesome.
Joint dislocation, or maybe just even dislocation. So we could, we'll definitely take that feedback to the group.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. So we are almost an hour in. Why don't we take just a 5-minute break, come back at 7:01, close to 7 as possible. And then we will start back with the registered family, and we will start with the purpose. Some of these sections are a lot shorter than others, and so we should be able to get through quite a few of these initial sections. So let's take a quick break and come back.
Carol,
Yes.
will you pop over to the CF definitions just so I can answer Sarah's question in the chat? I think I pulled it up. Will you just scroll up to 47? Right there. Yep. Okay. It is in there. It's okay. I will say that you're welcome, Sarah. This document is very difficult to read. And I easily miss things in it all the time. But I'm glad you're diligently looking for those things though, because that would be a definition we would definitely want to include if it got left out of the first filing. So.
Okay, well, let's get started. So we're starting back with the registered family home rules. The purpose, basically this section, I've got a little note here. The section has been moved and the number of rules have been condensed a bit because before they were a part of a lot longer set of rules. And so we broke them up into different sections. So this just basically explains the purpose of a registered family home. If there's no questions, I will go ahead and then switch to certified. Again, this is the same, but it's just with the certified rule numbers, but the verbiage is the same and explains the purpose for licensing. Any questions on either of those? Okay. So now we're going to dive into the application process. Again, over here, the key, always look, the yellow new ruler section, green, possible fiscal, blue, possible equity, and pink, revised wording or terminology. So the application process has basically remained the same, but this section has expanded the details of how to apply for a family child care license and what documents to provide with the application. And this is going to better support new providers seeking licensure. I do want to highlight something here. This was a new rule that was added. It is in current certified family rules, but not in registered. So it just is notifying people that if their renewal application and payment is not received at least 30 days prior to the expiration date of the current registration, that the registration will expire and the provider must cease operations unless the renewal is completed. So that is a new rule, but it's more clarification of our existing process. One thing I do want to highlight too is this number 7. So this is basically dealing if a piece of information is missing from an application, that CCLD will hold the application for 12 months prior to closing it out. And it will not prevent a provider from reapplying. So this is not due to any sort of negative actions. It's more of administrative. Any questions on, okay. Please let me know if I'm going too fast. Not much changed in the application process for certified family homes. Yes, Sarah.
Sorry to keep asking questions. This is more of a curiosity. I had a really hard time understanding 3A, a certified family childcare fee is $25 plus $2. I was trying to do the math in my head and I really struggled with that. And I
So
still don't get it.
okay, so it is a $25 initial application fee and $2 per each certified space. So if that's $2 per child, basically. So if you're licensed for 16, it's $25 initial application fee, and then $2 times 16. And I'm horrible with math. You combine those together and that's the fee. Does that help clarify?
It does to me, but I don't see that in that wording. So I don't know if that is just me, but thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, and how would you suggest it? What would help clarify?
My first thought is the word space might be slot or child. Other than that, the math part is a little, I don't know how to suggest improvements for that.
Okay, so maybe slot would be help clarify. Annalise, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's super crystal clear when you read your licensing renewal application or initial application. So maybe borrow the language that's on the application form itself.
Okay, great suggestion.
And so there are a couple just comments in the chat. From Danny, it says that the wording is very unclear, and Ashley suggests per child.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Annalise?
Per child wouldn't work because I currently have 18 children enrolled in my program, but only have 16 here at a time. So I think what we'd want, I think it's got to be, slot, I think is probably the good, or per licensed space capacity or capacity space or something like that. Again, if you go back and look at the form, that's really, I think, the most helpful wording.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
I agree with Annalise because I have 24 kids enrolled, but can only have 16 at one time. So
okay.
Carol, there are more things in the chat. Angela suggests, would it help if you added after the 28, 14 times 2? Oh, I see in the example that the 28
okay.
would indicate 14 times 2. I think that yes, that is also something that would be helpful to identify what that $28 actually represents as well, besides the suggested wording changes. And then Al says license capacity, perhaps. And Annalise said this is where annotated rules would help.
I do want to call out that you'll see a strike through with this rule. The rule was a statement that the certified family childcare home or its operation has not been determined by an authority to be in violation of applicable building codes and zoning requirements. So that has been removed from the rules. So that is no longer a requirement to seek that permission or hear the just the communication with the planning and zoning. And this is the same rule about if you miss just a piece of paper, we hold it for 12 months and you can reapply.
So, Carol, there are some things in the chat here. It says, oh, I'm not, okay, won't do that. And then, and Mindy says the way my licensor explained it to me said it's $25 fee and then $2 for lead license capacity. For instance, I have a 15 kid limit. So I multiply 15 by $2 and the total due would be 25 plus 30, which is 15 kids, which is equals $55.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this section? Okay. So now we are getting into the issuance of the registration. This is just the process about once the application has been received by our agency, that an inspection will take place. And it just goes ahead and spells out our process. You will notice that number 8, there's a strike through. Initially, we put in that the provider must request in writing to CCLD any changes in the conditions of the license. And so we did remove that. Yes, Danny.
Hi there, just some clarity on what you just said. Did you remove it because licensed RF providers are not required to declare specific hours?
Exactly. And they can change the rooms because we look basically at pretty much the entire house that they're going to use for childcare. Their capacity is set. And so we did go ahead and take that out because that would just be unnecessary to go ahead and communicate with licensing. Yes, Sarah.
So just to confirm my understanding, if a RF wants to change their age group ratios, not ratios, but you know, the capacity, their makeup, they do not have to report that or request it. They can do that at any time.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are there any questions in the chat, Abby?
I don't see any, no.
Okay. So we will move over to certified. Most of these items are the same that we looked at in registered, with the exception of number 4, which this language is just clarifies about when an owner can be the provider at 2 homes. So this is applicable for certified home providers that have multiple sites. It reads a lot clearer than the way the existing rules read. So this one does have the must request in writing to CCLD any changes in the conditions of the license. That does remain because a certified home can have specific ages. We can do a capacity increase. We take square footage amounts, so we review the rooms. So there are different reasons why we need to be informed when someone wants to change the conditions on their license. Are there any further questions on this? Any questions in the chat, Abby? Okay.
Mindy says, very clear, agreed with you when you commented that earlier, Carol.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
It's a team effort. Okay. So now we're going to go into the actual registration process. So this is a new section title. Many of the rules contained in this section are from the existing registered home section of 0035 under the general requirements. But what you will notice in the registered home is there are multiple general requirement sections. And so these have all been kind of broken up to be applicable to exactly what they are referencing. Number 3 just goes ahead and provides more specific details on what items agencies involved with licensing can have access to. That includes all caregivers, and this aligns with other licensed rule types. I do want to highlight number 7. So technical assistance is not going to take the place of a finding, but our goal is by providing technical assistance, it's a way to support providers in better understanding the requirement. And number 9, parental request or permission to waive any of the rules applicable to registered family childcare does not give a provider permission to do so. So as a provider, this is very supportive for you to show them that rule, that you are not able to go ahead and waive rules just because they say you can go ahead and do something. Any questions on this section? Okay. We'll switch to certified home. Yes, Annalise.
I just want to raise for this section where it talks about we're talking about 3B. There is another rule that this sort of conflicts with in the certified family rule set. So there is in the children's records section, there is a proposed rule that talks about offsite storage.
Okay.
So this rule says records of children enrolled in the certified family childcare and all records and reports related to childcare operation regarding compliance with these rules. And 3 says immediate access, including. So the way this is written, probably needs to refer to that other rule.
Okay.
I don't think you have to necessarily change the words. I'm just saying that, you might want to say something to the effect of regarding compliance with these rules, including OAR
and cross-reference,
blah, 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 right?
Okay.
Just for clarity.
Okay. Okay, great. Great feedback. Thanks. Any other questions on that? Annalise, do you have another question or? Oh, okay.
Just technical failure.
Trust me, I'm there every day. Hey, any other questions on this section? Okay. I'm going to move us along. So this is a new section for registered home. The requirements in this section were expanded and they now align with other licensed childcare rule sets. So this explains what rule exceptions, what the process is to file for an exception to a rule. And this goes ahead and explains that an exception request will not be granted to waive an on-site review for applicants applying for initial registration or renewal. So that is one thing you cannot write an exception to. And Danny?
So I just wonder about this because you're also supposed to get an on-site review like midway through your licensing period, and that's not mentioned here. Can they waive that?
No.
You might want to add that then.
So, Danny, I can speak to this. This is actually a this is what's in our statute for registered families specifically. So you'll see that the rule language for this is one area where registered family and certified family are slightly different. Registered family does allow for some exceptions to things that are in statute. I think they're referred to as either registration requirements. And the only thing that they can't apply for an exception to specifically is that on-site inspection. And I think what you're referring to is like monitoring, like unannounced monitoring, which is technically not a part of the like initial registration or renewal process, if that makes sense. So these are specifically to like that initial inspection and the renewal. If that helps. Like monitoring is not a part of the registration process nor the renewal.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, and so I understand how it doesn't fit in that sentence, but because it's not mentioned here, I might feel like, oh, I can't waive those, but I could waive others.
Okay.
When really the intent is that you may not waive any inspections.
That's very true.
One thing I do want to call out that in certain circumstances, a provider may be granted an ongoing exception that will be reviewed annually to confirm the provider's in compliance with all of the exception requirements. And then that we may, CCLD may withdraw approval of an exception at any time to ensure the health, safety, and well-being of children. Okay. There's no other questions on this. We can go ahead and look at the certified home exceptions. And it's basically the same exact that we looked at for registered. We've got the ongoing exception. And then the removal or withdrawal, approval of exception at any time.
There is a comment in chat that just says, Annalise says, I think providers know that they cannot get out of monitoring. It might not be their favorite part of the licensing process, but it is unfortunately required.
Yeah.
Yes.
We always tend to come at the worst time, it seems, but it's like, we're used to it. Great. I'm going to move us on. Yes, Annalise.
Okay, I'm just throwing this out there because you do not have it in the rule right now, but have you given, and this is something that's come up in my discussions with Department of Justice as a under Chapter 183 and 414-075-0300. Have you given any thought, Delk given any thought to writing something into this rule set about an exception request and a denial of that exception request, or a withdrawal or a removal of that exception request would technically be a state action, and under the 10th and 14th Amendments of the US Constitution, that you are required to provide us notice and opportunity, because that is other than a contested case hearing. Have you given any thought to putting some rule in there referencing like OAR 183 and the particular rules around that, or law around that?
You know, Annalise, I'm going to suggest that can you put that into the smart sheet so that we can take that, that suggestion forward and, go ahead and look at that.
Yeah, I for sure can.
Yeah, that would be, or Abby, if you want to chime in, go ahead.
Oh, you referenced a lot of things there that I offhand can't speak to. So, Carol, that's a great suggestion, or even putting it in the chat so that we can, Al can collect that for us if you don't want to use the smart sheet, and take that back also to our rules team. And it sounds like DOJ would also be a good place for us to shop that idea around. So, and there is a chat. And Amanda asked, are providers allowed to ask for exceptions to not inform parents of things going on with their child, such as going on field trips? And I can speak to that a provider can request an exception to any rule. They are required to follow the rule until their exception has been either approved or denied. But they can accept, or they can request an exception to anything in rule other than what is mentioned on this page. And so yeah, the answer to that question is yes, but there really needs to be a justification or reason for that request.
So these elements need to be filled out in terms of justification and an explanation of how the provider will meet the intent of the rule. And those exceptions go to an exception review committee, and they are discussed.
And Annalise and Amanda has her hand up. I just want to before, and then I'll read Annalise's comments.
Oh, sir, I can't see. Amanda?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if a rule or an exception like that to a rule concerning, the children would be communicated to the parents, or does that not need to be communicated to parents at all?
The request itself is not communicated to parents, but if an exception is approved, it's actually printed on the license itself, and the license is required to be posted in the facility. So parents would have access to that. Is there something more though, Amanda, that you would like to see in terms of notification or communication on that?
Not necessarily. That answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Great.
And then Annalise says providers are allowed to ask for any exception, but I've never seen I'm guessing that specific request either requested or approved. And just but Annalise is just stating that she has a history of 8 years that she can reference from. So it may have been requested. I have not seen that specific thing requested either in my 8 years as well with CCLD. So and Annalise, you have your hand up too.
I haven't.
Yeah, and just for context, I can tell you that over the last 8 years, 99 times out of 100, if a childcare provider gets denied for an exception, one of the first people they call to talk about that with is their licensing specialist, and then it's usually I'm either first or second in line behind them because they want me to try to do something. So I do keep track of every exception request that comes across my desk that I'm not licensing. I can't make approvals, but sometimes providers would like a little assistance in having a relook, and sometimes I'm able to offer that, and sometimes I am able to or have to say to them, I don't think that this is something we can relook at. Or that I can help you relook at, because I don't think we can get it across the table. So, and sometimes I do help them. So that's just not something that's commonly asked for.
Yeah. There's a comment in the chat. Mindy says that it just seems it's a bit of an odd request. But it doesn't mean it won't happen or can't happen. So they would just need to meet what's in rule in order for it to be approved.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I am going to move us along. So we're going to start diving into the policy section. There have been quite a few new policies that have been placed in rule for registered homes. I do want to point out that many of the policies will have templates. Our agency will go ahead and create templates, especially for like the emergency preparedness and response plan. So that's what this note states, is that we do have a template available to assist providers with creating these. And the goal of these policies a lot is just to increase communication between parents and providers. So it helps clear up if there's any questions or ambiguity or communication breakdown. You can always reference back to your policies that you have in writing. Any questions on this section? No questions?
There is one. Annalise just says that the union has a better template available. No shade on Delk.
No.
Ours is a combination of 5 national sources and 1 California source. We also have a 2-hour set 1 class and several 2-hour set 2 classes. Just an FYI, since we're talking about family childcare. And of course, you can reach out to Annalise if you want to aren't familiar with these resources and would like to take advantage of them. There are, oh, and Annalise said ELD's Kelly Walker, we used to work with Kelly as well, had collaborated with us on that at the time.
Oh, nice. Any other thoughts or suggestions? Yes, Annalise.
I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but as Delk is promulgating new rules, is it under the ADA stuff under paragraph 3? Is there going to be, are the new rules changing the current practice on how this is enforced? And who determines if discrimination occurred?
So Abby, do you want to take that?
We might have to do some research to find out. We typically, and Carrie, maybe I hate to call him the manager, but my understanding is that if there's a complaint of discrimination, it's not actually investigated. At least that portion of a complaint is not investigated by CCLD field staff. That it goes to our central office. Is that, Carrie, does that sound correct?
That does sound correct, Abby.
Okay. And I do not think that the intent for 3A and B is to change the current practice. But I do want to double check on you, but that is my understanding that and this language did come from DOJ. So, but we can verify that it does not change our current practice for you. And then Al, there's a request for you in the chat from Annalise to add this to our next union monthly meeting on rules.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next section is dealing with emergency preparedness and response. Again, we have templates available to support providers as they develop these plans, or as Annalise mentioned that she's a resource as well. And I do want to highlight that this is a new section for registered family rule in the registered family rules. Yes, Sarah.
I will preface this by saying I'm from Minnesota, not from Oregon, and that's where the majority of my career came from. The temperatures for 100 degrees to colder than 20 in Oregon, is it a thing to have the feels like temperature for including relative humidity or anything like that? Or is this culturally appropriate for the city, for the state?
It is. We don't really differentiate, but we do have technical assistance documents that we do provide providers that help show the heat index and wind chill and things like that. So these are just plans that need to be the plan needs to be developed in terms of what providers will do if in fact the temperature is 100, over 100 or colder than 20. Okay. So I do know that we have some registered family providers on the meeting. And so I'd be interested in knowing what they feel about this section since it is a new section. So I don't know if any of the registered home providers would feel comfortable coming off mute and just letting us know what your feelings are.
When I read this, I was wondering if there was like a template or something that we can reference to make it complete. And I think what Annalise mentioned that they also have some like classes that providers can take to to make this document better for when we have a licensing inspection or we need to make a renewal. I think that's the key for us to be more successful in being in compliance with this one.
Exactly. Great.
There are just a couple things in the chat from Annalise. Just says that I believe that this is a federal CCDF requirement that DELC must have this as part of licensing rules, and that is likely why it is added to RF, and that is correct. And there was emergency planning rules in registered family. They've just been strengthened and expanded, and we've gotten a little bit more specific in what needs to be planned for. And many of those items are CCDF requirements, so that is correct. There's another chat that says, obviously, very young children aren't going to be outside. I'm from Wisconsin, and yes, we do something different with children under school age. I'll just say, too, that we are developing rules for outdoor nature-based programs, which may be outside in less than 20-degree weather or warmer than 100-degree weather. So interesting things happening on that end as well. So,
Fernanda.
Yeah, I have a question about that, but because you mentioned Abby, in a meeting that we have, we have a conference in Portland about nature schools. I'm a nature school, but I'm a registered childcare provider. And one of the things that they told me is that when you are a registered care provider, that you have your home, even if you do nature, the program is nature-based, you need to be in compliance with the registered family rules. So I was wondering, because every time licenses come to my home, I keep asking, like, is there anything else in the outdoors? Because we spend a lot of time outdoors. And they say, like, no, I just need to see this and that's it. So it's like a very gray area. Because like we're in compliance, but there's a lot of things that happen outside. So I was wondering if that's something that is like going to change for us that are registered, that we're doing nature-based programs or not, but maybe this is not this place, but because you mentioned it, I wanted to know.
Yes. And that is a great question that I think Carol and I both are on the group that is helping develop the rules for outdoor nature-based programs. But that specific type of question we would probably take back to analyze just because those rules are in development right now. And not exact and a little bit outside of the focus of this rack, but we would be happy to work with you outside of this meeting to kind of maybe help guide you and prepare you for what's coming for outdoor nature-based if you choose to take that path and know what the difference is between keeping the registered family license versus having an outdoor nature-based license.
Kristen?
Just a question, because with the emergency plan we have now, we're supposed to have posted. Is this one that we're also going to have posted? Because I've already got 3 sheets long, and I could see this being like 10 sheets long, having to post on. So is this something that'll have to be posted for on the wall?
So, oh, Abby, were you gonna?
No, I was gonna say, we're not to that section, but no, it doesn't have to be posted, but it does need to be available.
Yeah.
And we'll get to a section where we talk. There are items that have to. It specifically calls out these items have to be posted. One is your license, right? Hasn't changed. But then there are items that will need to be available for review, and those could be in a binder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This does, however, have to be given to parents. So, and I can't remember if that's new for registered family or not. I don't.
It is.
Okay. So yes, it does need to be communicated out to parents, the emergency plan. And there are a couple of things in the chat here. Danny says, years ago, there was a hope to have an outdoor nature space specific rules, but we only have rules for indoor based. Fernandez just says, thank you. And glad to hear it still. Danny's glad to hear it's still coming. I was like, Danny, join the rack when it comes up.
Yeah, we're gonna start recruiting for that rack soon.
Oh, and Carol, we're at the 10-minute mark, by the way. So, okay,
great, thank you. And so this is the certified home section of the policies. Again, this rule is exactly the same as registered. but I want you all to take a look at it. One difference or one thing I do want to highlight that I didn't highlight under the registered home is you do need to go ahead and provide caregivers and volunteers at the time of hire and when policies change. So if you change your policy, you have to go ahead and give a copy to the caregivers and volunteers and to parents too.
There is a hand raised. Kristen,
sorry.
you've got your hand raised? Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't want to miss it.
Sorry.
Oh,
It's okay. We in I did Carol, or what section? I think we're in the wrong, are we in the wrong section? Oh no, we are. Sorry.
Policies.
That's my bad. I'll let you drive.
You're totally fine.
There is a comment in the chat.
Okay.
It just says, Mindy says, I hand out policies and procedures handbook to my parents yearly. It's nice for parents to have reminders. That's a good way to keep folks updated and informed. Yep.
Exactly. So are there any additional questions that we did not address that maybe have come up when you're reviewing this section? Yes, Fernanda.
This is just from a equity perspective. I wanted to know if discrimination can be included also on the beginning of like definitions, because that's so like when we're talking about discrimination, it can be like many forms and many biases that it can be implied. Like, I mean, something very simple that somebody like will know when somebody is discriminated. Because if I read discrimination, it might be one thing for me, it might be one thing for you. So for me, from the lens of equity, I think it might be important to put it on the beginning so everybody is clear about what discrimination looks like or where to reference and what practice of discrimination in our programs will look like.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you. I think we are. No, Abby, I think you were right. I was on the wrong section.
I think maybe you did both policies and emergency preparedness, which is totally okay. Totally
I'm
okay.
sorry. Sorry, all. It's been a long day. So yeah. So if there are no other questions, we are at our stopping point for this session. And we'll pick up with children's records. But I do want to thank you all. There's been some great feedback, and we really appreciate your participation tonight. To carry this momentum forward, we really encourage you to review the rules and use that the feedback form that's available. You may have what I call a 3 a.m. thought. If you're older, you understand that. You wake up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. So if you have a thought that's a burning thought, please let us know, because it is it takes a collection of thinking in order to make sure that the rules are you know, they're strong, but they're also equitable, and we really want to make sure that they're usable for everyone. So I also just wanted to briefly touch on reimbursement. So you will be reimbursed for each session. We take attendance. The last session during the rack, the more detailed information will be provided. But right now you'll receive an email after the last rack with it most likely won't be from me, but it'll explain the process. Please know that you're dealing with a state agency, so it does take a long time to get through the reimbursement process because there are multiple units that have to sign off. So it's not something that happens quickly, but we really work hard in order to make sure that all of your information is in so that you can get paid for your valuable time, because we do appreciate your feedback. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and let you know, send out the agenda and the next set of rule topics that we will go ahead and review for next week. I'll be getting that out by close of business on Friday. So that you can better prepare for or feel prepared basically for the meeting on next Wednesday.
Carol, there's just two comments and in the chat. Just Mindy says that she also has a lot of 3 a.m. thoughts. And for those that are interested in some musical inspiration, Danny says that AJR has a song called 3 o'clock things all or 3 o'clock things all about that.
Oh my gosh. You guys are all wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and for your sense of humor. We do appreciate you all. So if there are no other questions or thoughts, we're going to end 3 minutes early. Okay.
Have a good evening, everyone, and see you next
Take
week.
care. Thank you.
Thanks so much. See you next session.